Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Joey Knight Jr. here once again with another comic book review, and today, The Horseman issue number 1. Now, previously we had a Horseman review, but it wasn't it's an official release, but it wasn't an official start to the Horseman comic book series. It was more of a one-off. But this right here is the official start for the Horseman comic series. Now right here we have cover A, and then we have my reading copy, cover D, right here. Just got done reading it, and we're as always, we're going to get into some spoiler territory, but I'm not going to go in and about everything that happens in the comic. I'm going to leave some stuff for you to go, he said enough things that made me interested in buying the comic, so you know what, I'm going to buy the comic and figure out these other things that he may have left out. So with that being said, let's just get right into it. We pick back up with Hector as he's reliving some memories with his military unit, the Four Horsemen. And then he slowly goes into one by one how each member of the Horsemen died. One from an IED, another one from their helicopter being shot down, and then from the imagery and just how it was worded, this is how I'm taking it. But the last one, offing themselves at Christmas. That's how I took it, from the imagery and everything else and how everything was worded. That's how I took it. I don't know that for sure. Let me know what your interpretation was when you read it, if you've read this. And then we see that, he's discussing all this in a therapy session. And basically just boils down to he doesn't feel like he has purpose in life anymore ever since he put down the Horseman suit, and he's trying to find some type of adrenaline rush to keep him going like the military did. Doctor tries prescribing him some psychiatric meds, and he's like, nah, I'm good, I don't want that stuff. And then we see he tries to do some normal everyday things like running, bike riding, golf, and it just doesn't work out for him. He can't adapt to having these normal everyday activities for hobbies. So we eventually see him working at what I ultimately look at as like the Florist Park version of an Amazon warehouse. It was called Unipackets, I believe, is what the place was called in the comic book. In fact, I can just look at it real quick. I wanted to try to avoid that, but I want to make sure I'm telling the truth on everything. As we open it up real quick, yep, Unipacket. All right, there we go. So we see him do that, and we see that he's just pretty unfulfilled by everything, until he just so happens to be driving around one day and sees a advertisement for someone saying, hey, if you're the Horseman, text this number. Oh, actually, before we go further into that, his nephew Danny discovers that he didn't get rid of all the Horseman gear. Hector, he's just up in the attic one day, just looking around, looking at his gear, looking at his little toolbox that he had, and Danny sneaks up the attic and sees that the Horseman stuff is still there. So, it's their little secret from Hector's sister, Danny's mom. It's their little secret. How long that secret lasts, we shall see. But continuing on. So, Hector gets curious, he texts the number, and he's told to meet at the place where the Horseman last, rode, which was the bowling alley from Horseman Welcome to Florist Park. He gets there, and he ends up meeting this guy, this rich tech guy by the name of Cal Buxton. Let me make sure I got the last name correct. I'm pretty positive on the first name, but let me make sure I got that last name right. I do believe it was Buxton. Buxton. Yep, Cal Buxton. All right. So Cal basically, tries to appease to Horseman's, good nature side. Because, Horseman, the type of character he is, he's a good guy, but what he does, can you really call yourself a good guy? Because it's not like, he makes arrests. No, he's taking out people. Even though it's bad people, he's still taking them out. But he tries to appeal to Horseman's good side, like, hey, I'll be upfront and honest. I want to clean up the streets just so, I can make sure I make more money. If all the drugs and everything else is going on around here, it's taken away from my money with my businesses. So I want to help you out, fund you, so that way you can help clean up the streets. So you get what you want, I get what I want. He tries to appeal him to that way. Horseman ultimately declines. So Cal ultimately tells his assistants, all right, it's time to go into plan B, basically. And once again, this is my connection, not confirmed. This is just my theory. So this is not a spoiler. This is just my theory on what plan B was. Because when Hector gets home, he sees that a 15-year-old girl has overdosed on counterfeit Adderall, which ultimately makes him decide, okay, I'm going to take up Cal on his offer. I think somehow, some way, Cal had something to do with that. Because even though the relationship is presented as, I know nothing about you, you know nothing about me, we don't deal with each other, we don't have any links that can tie each other together, despite how that relationship is portrayed, I think Cal secretly knows that Hector's the Horseman. And figured out his address, figured out all this stuff, and I think somehow, some way, Cal is responsible for that 15-year-old girl overdosing on the counterfeit Adderall. Because that's ultimately what gets Horseman to change his mind and agree. And then, a few weeks go by after setting up his lair, making his new vehicle and all this other stuff, he goes back into action. So once again, my theory, not anything confirmed by the book or anything else, that's just my theory on what is going on. And we see the Horseman, he springs back into action. He's about to get ready to drop on his first assignment until it is interrupted by Alpha Core. And Horseman gets out of Dodge pretty quickly. He sees Alpha Core, he knows the warning Brian Solari gave him the last time they met each other, and he is steering clear of him. And for one, I don't blame him. I do not blame him at all. If you've seen what Brian Solari can do, Horseman ain't gonna handle it. All right, so I don't blame him one bit. And Horseman basically lets Cal know, like, hey, this went bad. Alpha Core was there. Like, what do we need to do? So Cal gets his IT team, and after some brainstorming, they eventually come to the idea that, well, we just need to buy some of these confidential informants that the authorities have. And they do. So we do see later on they do buy off one of these informants to basically become their new mole, their new rat, whatever you want to call them. And ultimately the comic ends with Horseman coming in on a new drop that is outside Flores Park, outside Alpha Core's jurisdiction. Words, they're very hard to say sometimes. And it's basically a facility that makes counterfeit style drugs like the one that the 15-year-old girl overdosed on. And he springs into action, and that is where the comic book ends. Just enough meat on the bones to hook you with the background story and everything else, but it leaves you on that cliffhanger to where you're going to buy issue number 2. And most certainly I'm going to buy issue number 2 whenever it's available for pre-order. Because I've said it before and I will say it again. Top 3 characters in the Rippaverse for me, Bloodroof, Yaira, Horseman. Can be in any order on any given day. That is my top 3. The order changes all the time, but Horseman for me, top 3 character in the Rippaverse. And once again, we'll just take another look at it. Beautiful, beautiful covers. Once again, cover A, cover D. And then we just, just from the very beginning, just look at the beautiful artwork of the page count. Not page count, but just the pages. Just beautiful artwork done by the Rippaverse Comics team. Chuck Dixon once again nailing it out of the park with another incredibly told story. Also, through reading this, I believe Horseman is well, I guess it pretty much confirms it. Horseman's taking place before events of like Isom, Yaira, Bloodroof, and such, because it's talking about things from the Great War of Separation. So this is like, but then again, Alpha Core's already formed, so maybe it's all happening at the same time. I'm not sure. Who knows? Who knows? But once again, the universe is still building. So slowly but surely, we're kind of gathering all these pieces together. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed this. I'm going to pre-order Horseman number 2 the second it becomes available to do so. Amazing story. Horseman, you know, he doesn't have any superpowers or anything like that. He's just a guy with a military background. He's got guns, he's got weapons, he knows how to use them well, and he will fight until the bitter end for what he thinks is right. And how can you not get behind a character like that? You may not like the result of what he does, but at the end of the day, he is a good guy, you know? Very troubled guy, but he is still a good guy at the end of the day. But if you've read The Horseman, issue number 1, let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. Did you get Horseman Welcome to Flores Park? Did you go straight into just getting the Horseman issue number 1? Or if you've not gotten any and you're still on the fence about maybe getting them? If you're still on the fence about it, please, 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 I highly recommend you buy the Horseman. But at the end of the day, let me know what you think in the comments below. But also, leave a like on the video, share the video, but most importantly of all, subscribe to Joey Knight Jr. And I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.